John Lass and David Klein here again to talk about the latest findings from our Back-to-Normal Barometer. A couple of interesting things, David, going on with this wave of data that we've just collected as we continue our look at consumer pulsing in the sports and leisure industry. First and foremost, some good news in the sense that the overall confidence barometer, that for those who didn't see our first video, is an aggregation of some 26 attitudinal statements. We've seen that actually move up from 27% to 31%. Which is a good sign, certainly not the numbers that we ultimately will look for, and certainly lower than what we saw even right after the aftermath of 9/11 when we initially did similar research. But the good news is that it's coming from both future expectations and current conditions. Another interesting thing that we found with this particular wave of research is a couple of different dynamics when we ask people to indicate their level of concern about both the public health crisis as well as the economic situation. And on the first hand, we've seen that societal concerns are really overarchingly more significant than personal concerns. People more worried about the overall health crisis than the likelihood that they might actually catch the contract COVID-19. The other thing that I thought was kind of intriguing was that when you look at the economy versus the health crisis overall, they're pretty much equal in terms of people's concerns. Could we be reaching an inflection point here, David?
You know, John, we've been presenting these findings to literally hundreds of marketing and senior level executives every week. And the questions we're getting all the time are exactly that. When are we going to hit an inflection point? And when are we going to know when that inflection point is? And when we start to see that people are motivated by what's going on in the US economy as a whole, at least as much, if not more so, than what's going on with their personal health issues as well as their personal finances, that very well might be a motivating factor that people need to take account of and possibly even incorporate into their marketing and communications. So certainly this is going to be something that we're going to be looking at very carefully. You know, I wanted to shift gears a little bit now and talk about the Back-to-Normal Barometer as it relates to sports. And, you know, some very key insights here about what the sports fans are feeling in terms of deprivation. What do you know, John? What do you see here?
Well, it's interesting to see that the sports that are showing currently the highest levels of deprivation tend to be those with both large fan followings and that have seen real disruption in either existing seasons or, in the case of baseball, a season that hasn't even begun. Soccer heads the list, but then you find basketball and baseball there. You find MMA, which kind of had a false start and then started again. So very interesting to see that. And also, I think, as you noted, we've seen the overall level of deprivation go way up relative to what we saw in the first wave. So certainly some implications for those sports in terms of how they can better connect with their fans. And kind of on the flip side of it, you look at a sport like horse racing, which is experiencing very little deprivation. They've had more coverage, live coverage in the last month or so than anything. I, for one, actually watched the Arkansas Derby over the weekend, and interestingly enough, horse racing fans are certainly getting their fix.
You know, the other point of this, and when we talk about deprivation, we have to recognize that there's a very strong emotional component to this. And we've been tracking this on social media, which is kind of the third leg of our multi-mode Back-to-Normal Barometer analysis. And what we've seen is a tremendous increase in the amount of social media conversation around sports fans' deprivation of their favorite sports. We've seen an over 200% increase in wave-to-wave communications and social media discussions with respect to that. And that increase is fueled by much more emotional negativity regarding not only the lack of the sport, but uncertainty of what the sport's going to look like and uncertainty of when the sport will even return. So as we continue, we'll be checking these as well as a lot of other key metrics as we move forward with the next wave of the study actually going into the field this week.
So we'll be back with some more video after that wave has been completed. We're also offering a public briefing, which will be taking place on May 18th. If that's something that's of interest, just ping us back on LinkedIn or through direct email, and we'll be happy to include you in that. Thanks for watching.